Hey, welcome to the Cheap Air Gunner channel. It's Cherokee Steve. I was very excited today when I received an email notification that a delivery was supposed to be made today at my house, which it did come, FedEx, and I had gotten to the point where, as I explained in a previous video, working some side jobs, I was able to save up enough money to make what I wanted to be my next airgun purchase. After placing the order, was pretty excited about Hatsan Flash Pup with the walnut stock in 177 caliber. If you've watched some of my past videos, you're probably aware of the fact that I have a 25 caliber Flash Pup with the synthetic stock. Great gun. Absolutely fantastic. For the price point of these Hatsan Flash Pups and what you get, that factored in heavily into what I decided to go with. Also, there's quite a bit of difference in styling between the synthetic stock Flash Pup version and the walnut stock Flash Pup version. Enough that they very much look like two different guns, yet the internals and obviously everything from the air cylinder and trigger system on up is exactly the same between the two guns. It's just the stock styling is very different. Number one, fantastic deal. I was constantly going back before I made up my mind on which air gun I wanted. But coupons and discounts can be applied to the Hatsan Flash Pup. So that made a big difference. I had a discount code that was going to give me both a significant amount of money off of the price of the Hatsan Flash Pup and provide free shipping from Pyramid Air. When I opened the box, I was really excited, liked the look of the gun. But there's always a but, isn't there? So I thought I would throw this in at this particular point of the video. The rest of the video, I talk specifically about issues that I had with the gun. Overall, I've chosen to hold on to the gun. There are problems that I came across straight out of the box. I really wish, being as big of a fan as I am of Hatsan guns, I wish they would really get their quality control under wraps, because it would be so nice to take a Hatsan air gun out of the box, have it shoot exactly the way it's supposed to shoot without any issues. That wasn't the case with this particular gun. A portion of the introduction video, it does shoot over the published velocity with lead pellets. That's the main reason why I'm going to be holding onto the gun. But if you want to stay tuned and listen to specifically what was wrong and things that were done to correct it, that's what the rest of the video entails. I just wanted to let you know, if you weren't interested in that, probably a good time to tune out. Okay? One of the things I noticed straight out of not even removing the gun from the box, one thing I did not like was the bag that it was packaged in. Now, out of every single Hatsan air gun that I have ever ordered, going through my mind in a quick ballpark estimate is 7. This is prior to purchasing this particular Hatsan. 7 Hatsan air guns, I would say, I have ordered. They've all come in a plastic bag that completely covers the entire gun. Plastic bag that encompasses the entire length of the gun. This happens to be a bubble bag that is too short to cover the entire length of the gun. As a matter of fact, not only will it not, it was sitting in the bag, actually pulled back so that a portion of it was more like this. This part of the barrel and this front part of the wooden stock was sticking out. So my first fear was going to be, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to find some damage. Most likely on the air cylinder loading port end of the wooden stock. But going over it, it didn't have, I just thought it was unusual. I've never received a Hatsan gun in a bubble bag that would not, in a bubble bag, and in a bag that would not wrap up the entire length of the gun. Not, I overall am satisfied with the gun. We'll sum everything up at this point, but there's still more I want to talk about. For the fill port on the air tube is different than the one on the 25 caliber. The one on the 25 caliber actually has an end with a lip, somewhat of a head on it that is larger than the fill port. So it's fairly easy to get your fingernails underneath the lip and pull it out. This plug does not work like that. It seats entirely inside the fill port. The only way to push it out is to carry some object with you, an Allen wrench or something like that, where it can be inserted through one end of the fill port and pushed out across the other end. The 25 caliber synthetic stock flash pup can be easily pulled out by hand. I can't do that with this. I need some type of pushing object to remove the air fill port plug. I do want to offer criticism as to the design of this plug. Got it filled up, as you can see from the pictures at the beginning of the video. Now, one of the things I did not like was, without any pellet, but pointing it downrange in my basement at my target, I did cock the action and did a dry fire in a safe direction down at my basement target. The discharge seemed to me to be way underneath what it should be, just by the sound and the force of the hammer striking the valve stem seemed to be way on the low end of what I would expect. Didn't want to jump to conclusions. Got out the 177 caliber pellets. I have the highest quantity of these Beeman hollow points. Very inexpensive pellets. They do not say the weight on them. I would have to look that up and get an exact weight in grains on these pellets, but they are lead. I know that. But having had the pellets pulled out and wanted to see actually what this was going to fire a pellet at, like I said, did not want to jump to conclusions based on the dry fire sound. Unfortunately, after I pulled out the magazines, I realized that the magazines that were shipped with this gun are not for a 177 caliber pellet. Because I have my 25 caliber magazines sitting out right down here, I compared the opening in this magazine, both magazines actually, that came with the 177 flash pump, with the one that came with my 25 caliber flash pump, and realized the magazines they sent that were packed in the box are actually for a 25 caliber gun, not a 177. Not only are the magazines for a 25 caliber, the single shot loading tray is for a 25 caliber. Now, that's a pretty big criticism right there. Coming from the factory, you're putting a 177 caliber gun in a box. In the accessory box you're going to package with it has 25 caliber. That's a pretty big no-no and mistake. You should not be packaging 25 caliber magazines and single shot tray with a 177 caliber air rifle. What I went ahead and did was load up the single shot tray. Because the indentation, the loading portion of the tray is so large, it's 425 caliber, sometimes just push the head because it's not centered correctly with the loading port itself. It wants to hit, and if you were to continue forward with the bolt, damage the pellet. So what I figured out, what I did, was take the 177 pellet, drop it in carefully so it was facing the right direction, and believe me, that was a process in and of itself. Instead of using the bolt to push the pellet forward, I used the back end of a broken off Q-tip to push it forward and work it around, tilting and pushing and tilting and pushing softly until the head of the pellet did get into the loading port and was able to seat it with this. Put 2 shots over my chronograph. The first shot was 620 feet per second. So this is a gun that is rated by Hatsan with lead pellets in 177 caliber. Is supposed to be shooting 1,150 feet per second, and it shot 620. I loaded another pellet and shot it. I got 584 feet per second. So that very soft discharge I heard with no pellet, that very soft hitting of the hammer against the valve stem, was pretty much being proven out as being the case. At this particular point, I was debating, okay, putting the gun back in the box, calling up Pyramid Air and saying, I want to exchange this air gun. What I would really like is a accessory box that comes with the proper caliber magazines. I would love an accessory box that comes with the proper caliber single shot tray. I would love a flash pump in 177 caliber that is set from the factory to shoot what they claim it shoots, 1,150 feet per second with lead pellets. But having done hammer adjustments to my 25 caliber, there is a video for doing that. The process is exactly the same for this particular gun. I removed it from the stock. Very interesting. Where the hammer adjuster was set, the screw that is actually in the middle of the hammer, it screws in clockwise to decrease velocity. It screws counterclockwise to increase velocity. So from where it was set and turning it in to see where it would stop, it would only turn 1 1/4 turns to be fully seated in, or shoot at the lowest velocity it could possibly be set at. Now, knowing from where I was with the 25 caliber Hatsan flash pup, and I believe that was more like 7 full turns in from where it was set at the factory to being turned completely in. Somebody set this at the very low end of what it was capable of shooting. So I did go ahead, I brought it back out from being fully turned all the way in, back 1 1/4 turn, which was where it was set out of the box. Now, who set it at that? I can't tell you, but I came out 7 complete full turns from that point. And without loading a pellet, cocked the gun, pointed it safely downrange, and fired. And based on the pop that came from the gun, the pressure that was exerted by the hammer hitting the valve stem, I was like, this sounds 1,000 times better than it previously did. Let's get a pellet loaded. Let's put it over the crony. So again, using the single shot tray and the back end of a broken off Q-tip, get a pellet loaded, put it over the crony, and it was 1,160 feet per second. Loaded up another pellet, put a second shot after the adjustments were made to the hammer spring tension, got 1,157 feet per second. So it does seem to be holding air. It does seem to be capable of, again, I will look up the weight of these Beeman pellets. They are lead pellets, and it's shooting these lead pellets. At that particular point, over at that hammer spring adjustment, actually over the published velocity of 1,150 feet per second, which is what I've come to expect from Hatsans. The cocking pressure is not out of the ballpark for me as far as difficulty. Obviously, the more tension there is on that hammer spring, the harder it's going to be to cock. And one of the things I've read in reviews on this particular gun that I really was concerned about was a lot of people saying how rough this cocking bolt was. And it really seems not as smooth as it could be, as smooth as I would expect from a air rifle that comes in at the price point that this one does. Yes, it's acceptable, in my opinion. Not the smoothest bolt action, but certainly not the worst either. So I'm going to decock this, put the safety back on. So after having gotten it out of the box and trying to do a decent initial review here, do I have issues with some things? Obviously. The first thing I would say is fairly minor. It may have led to something that was not going to be fairly minor, and that's something as simple as the bag the gun was packaged in. it's a bag that is too short to protect the entire length of the air rifle. I've never experienced that with a Hatsan gun. Not thrilled with that. And as I said, if I had taken it out and found that the portion of the wooden stock that was sticking out beyond the end of the bag had been scratched up or dinged or marred in some fashion, I really would have been pissed off. Really would have been pissed off that the thing wasn't put in a bag that would fully protect the gun. Not that that would have made a difference, but it certainly wouldn't have hurt anything, that's for sure. Putting it in a bag that the gun won't entirely fit into is not acceptable in my opinion. But that was the first thing. The second thing are the accessory box. Magazines in a single shot tray for a 25 caliber pellet, packaged with a gun that's 177 caliber. That's something, that's a pretty big exclamation point. But I'll get back to that. The other thing I've noticed, having the gun come out of the box, set up hammer spring wise at the very lowest velocity that the gun would possibly shoot at. At least the pellets came out of the end of the gun. But, you know, for something that's rated at 1,150 feet per second and getting something, an average velocity between two shots of 600 feet per second, you know, the one thing I did going over completely, giving the exterior of the gun the once over. One of the things I was pleased with, the bluing on the finish, whatever you want to call it, on the air cylinder itself and the barrel, the QE shroud. There is no visible scratches or markings to them whatsoever. Now that is something with the 25 caliber flots on. With the 25 caliber Hatsan flash pup that I have, did have some minor scratches on both the receiver and the air tube, but not on this one. There are imperfections in the stock finish. There are some runs here in the clear coat, right here and here. And then towards the end of the stock over here by the butt plate, there is some significant buildup of clear coat. It obviously was hanging this way. Based on the runs that I'm seeing up here, everything dripped down that way and obviously built up as well at the end here where the butt plate attaches. Again, in the reviews I read prior to purchasing this gun, there was criticism of the stock, the wooden stock version itself. It doesn't seem to be the highest quality of Turkish walnut that Hatsan uses. There were reviews from people who own Turkish walnut versions of more expensive Hatsan guns, relatively speaking, compared to this one. You know, it's obvious. One of the ways they came in at the price point that they came at with the Hatsan Flash Pup was the quality of the wood that is chosen to be used for this stock versus some of the more expensive Hatsan Turkish walnut stocks, that this is not as high of a quality of wood. And that some imperfections in the finish of the stock were to be expected as well, based on the reviews that I read. There is nothing that makes me, at this point, want to send the gun back. The fact that it holds air and it shoots beyond the published velocity that it will shoot at after I made the hammer spring adjustment, I want to leave well enough alone. I could send this back, and God knows what I would get in place of it. As far as the magazine and this single shot tray goes, immediately after confirming that the gun was shooting at the velocities, it was capable of shooting at the velocities it's supposed to be able to shoot at, and reattaching the upper portion back to the stock, I called Pyramid Air. They said they were aware of the issue. Magazines that were received were not for the caliber the gun was manufactured in. So Pyramid Air stated they had no issue. They would, there was no need to return the gun. They will be sending out 177 caliber magazines to replace the two that I received that were in 25 caliber. Confusing to me, but they said that they could not supply me with a single shot tray in 177 caliber. That the magazines themselves are considered a part of the gun and part of the gun as a unit. Therefore, Hatsan does supply them with replacement magazines and according to the person I was speaking to, Hatsan was aware of the fact that they shipped guns from the factory in a certain caliber with magazines that were in the wrong caliber. So their retailers that are selling their guns for them, guns are receiving replacement magazines from Hatsan, since Hatsan is aware that guns left the factory with the incorrect magazines. So they were, according to them, they're sending out two 177 flash pup magazines to replace the 225 caliber, but they can't send out a single shot tray. If I want a single shot tray in 177 caliber, I would need to contact Hatsan USA. So I will attempt to do that and let you know what I find out from that. At this particular point of the video, in relationship to the single shot tray issue I've had, I contacted Hatsan USA through their customer service request form online. Within hours, they got back to me, and they are shipping me out a 177 single shot tray for the flash pup. I thought that was pretty excellent customer service. I know other people have mentioned that they have had issues with Hatsan customer service, and I never have. This is the quickest reply I've ever gotten back from them. But normally within 24 hours, I do hear back, and this was within hours of submitting the claim form and registering my gun at the same time. So I did want to specify that. As far as the service from Pyramid Air, not needing me to send the gun back, replacing, not replacing, but simply supplying the correct magazines. Big thumbs up to Pyramid Air for doing that. Now, in the meantime, while I wait to receive those magazines, go ahead, and I explained to the guy at some point during the conversation that I have a Hatsan flash pup in 25 caliber. He told me, there's no need to send back what you received, the incorrect magazines. As a matter of fact, you go ahead, you could use them. you have a 25 caliber flash pub. So now I have 4 25 caliber flash pub magazines and 2 single shot trays. So I will wait patiently for the 177 caliber magazines from Pyramyd Air. Thank you, Pyramyd Air, for supplying those in light of the fact that it is a mistake that was made by Hatsan. Pyramyd Air didn't have anything to do with it. If I had paid, and this is one of the things you might want to consider if you're ordering an air gun from Pyramyd Air, the 10 for 10. For 10 extra dollars, they'll fire 10 shots out of the gun and send you a record of the average velocity and all that. It very well may have negated 2 of the issues that I ended up having with this gun. Number one, they may have certainly come across the fact that they couldn't load up 177 pellets into a 25 caliber magazine and replace them with the correct magazines. The other thing they probably would have come across testing this with 10 shots over a chronograph was it was set up incorrectly from the shop to shoot at a velocity that was so low it's nowhere near the claimed velocity that the gun is supposed to shoot at. Maybe that would have been dealt with. Anyway, this has been a much longer initial review than I happen to have. I will get to more and do more in-depth look at this particular gun. In the meantime, I've got it. And overall, I'm pretty excited about it, regardless of the issues that came along with a brand new air gun out of the box that I wouldn't expect to have to deal with. But until the next one, guys, thanks for checking out this video. Shoot straight and stay safe.